Welcome to the ABCs of Horses, a Big Blend radio podcast featuring Christy Wood, a world champion horse trainer, a carded horse show judge, an equestrian expert, and an author. So welcome, everyone. Today we get to one of those interesting letters in the alphabet, Q. And today Christy Wood is going to be teaching us all about quirks, horse quirks. Humans have quirks, dogs have quirks. Any living thing in the world has a quirk, and most of the time they are endearing, and sometimes they tell you something that is maybe not right, something that you need to pay attention to. And I think that's where we're going to go to on this show, is about paying attention and getting to know your horse and its quirks. So how are you doing, Christy?
I'm doing great, Lisa. It's nice to be back on the air. I was this morning. I was up on the mountain this morning with Buckley. Cooler
nice.
Mornings. I'm going to be out there riding the hills. And I actually came across several deer. The deer are now showing up more in the Three Rivers foothill area because fall is showing its face around here.
Oh, is it?
A few leaves, a few acorns. I'll be living in a zoo for the next couple of months. We even had a bear last night in the backyard.
Cool. Okay. So, this is all about observing behavior, right? So quirks, like all wildlife has it too. It's starting to watch what they do. And right before you came on here today and recording, I was petting a dog and it's got this one little section. If you give it a little scratchy here, the little, back foot starts to like kick out and it loves it, but it's a little ticklish, but it loves it. And so that's what, it's nothing negative. It's something, it's just, that's the ticklish spot. And this is what I do to let you know. And it's involuntary, actually. So I think, aren't quirks a lot of times involuntary?
They can be. There's a lot of reasons we have quirks with horses. And the first one would probably be from boredom. And that's when horses aren't getting ridden enough. They haven't been handled a lot. And they stand all day and take naps and wonder where their people are and if they're going to see the trail or the show arena again, and horses are bored. So they create some interesting behavioral patterns. That's the best way to say it. And some can be very, very entertaining and creative, and some can also be a negative vice, and maybe we'll talk about that when we get to the V's. But it can come from boredom, but then also if you spend enough time observing your horse and watching them, they can actually be creative. So it can come from creativity.
However, I want to go to the boredom part because I've seen that with horses. I mean, you go to a zoo and you'll watch an animal that is normally supposed to be roaming the wild. And in a zoo, sometimes you see animals just going back and forth. They maybe be standing in one place with a horse and then the neck just goes back and forth and the stable door, like just back and forth because they're bored with being in this little square all day long. If they're not out and getting exercise, animals will start pacing. And you see that in zoos that are not giving the quality of life to the animal that they should. So not all zoos are like that, but some, when you see animals pace, that's a sign that they are highly bored. And what are you going to, there's creativity, but if you're in a cage and not out for we even, prisoners get to go out and have some, activity time because it's good for the body. It's good for the soul. It's actually, they say, like, if you don't exercise, exercise helps us even in stress management. So is that part of what you're talking about with a quirk, if you notice your horse pacing or just the neck going back and forth?
Yes, except that we categorize that as a vice. There's a difference between a vice, and that's why I said we'll talk about that when we get to the V's. The vice is not, it's a negative pattern or a negative behavior because of boredom. It just, you have to define.
Okay.
And while you're observing these animals, yes, the pacing is going to be definitely negative. That is stress. No doubt that's stress. We're talking about quirks, though, today, which really will lighten this conversation up a little bit more.
Right, but yeah.
Because horses want to have some fun. They want to interact with either the area, the paddock that they're in, or objects that you've given them to stimulate their minds if they have to stand in a paddock all day long. I actually have plastic barrels and toys in every one of my paddocks because horses will go up and they'll want to nose it. They may want to chew on it. I've got some empty water bottles and even laundry soap that come with the pods, not the liquid, folks. Little bottles that I can tie a rope around the handle, and I put rocks in it, and I hang it in a paddock, and I've got a horse that goes up and bites it and shakes it and rattles it. He wants to be creative. So actually those kind of uh, creativity and the entertainment the horse is trying to give itself actually will prevent the vices that we will talk about in the future, because the
Oh,
vices can be more detrimental to health and to hooves and their wellness, even their mental status. And so this is we're talking about quirks today, and we're going to talk about some fun things that horses have done on their own just to pass the time until you show up and take them out for a ride.
so this is about fun because I listened to a biologist, a marine biologist, a few months ago on a podcast talking about orcas. And they're watching orcas because they were on the endangered species list for so long. I'm not quite sure if they still are or not. But now, as the numbers come back of orcas, which are not whales, I know we call them killer whales, but they are actually they're dolphins. But they go up and are starting to bump fishermen boats, right, which can get scary.
Mhm.
But what they've really realized is these orcas are playing games and they are smart as, I mean, just smart as a whip, like super, super smart beings. And they create games. And just like you see them in like an oceanarium, and that's why they can do all these things, is they are playful, playful beings. And they're not trying to harm, but they will race each other just like we do as humans. So is that the kind of thing you're talking about too? They're having fun. And then there's quirks that we all have as, animal beings. We have quirks that like, you touch me here, I'm going to start, being ticklish kind of thing,
Mhm. But
it's
one of the
hard. Yeah.
quirks, one of the first quirks, if you have two horses that can be stable together, they get along really well. I've got an example of that. I've got two really wonderful mares that absolutely adore each other. And what's wonderful about it is you could take them apart and they don't have separation anxiety, but when they're together, they will actually mutually groom each other, face the opposite direction, and both of them massage each other's withers. And that's a
Mm,
sign, actually, that's a sign of affection in horses. These mares just get along really great. Not all horses do that.
yeah,
And,
that's
uh,
awesome.
and so it's just fun to watch them observe and watch their friendship develop, and they're really great, both have really great personalities, so no one's trying to pick on the other one. They share everything. Even though we feed them out of separate, feeders, they still go and stand with each other. They stand all day long, no matter where one is, the other one is right by its side. And then what's wonderful about them is, again, they don't have separation anxiety. I could take one out to ride or give a riding lesson, and the other one stays just as calm as can be and knows her
Mm.
friend will be back eventually, and it's really, really great.
You just said something there that I think is important. They know the other one is coming back. They know the routine. They are at peace in where they are. So that's
Mhm.
also part of it with quirks is they're comfortable. They
Yes,
feel safe to be
yes,
able to have quirks versus a vice. I'm glad we brought up this quirk versus vice thing. I had no
yes.
idea that it was two different things, but I've seen zebras do that and clean each other like that. I've seen zebras do that in the wild, which is
Mm.
pretty amazing. I mean, they are related in that's a whole other show, but it's a beautiful thing and it's matriarchal in a way. There's a mothering that happens. And I think that's beautiful that your mares do that and feel that comfortable to do that. I mean, that's really cool. Now, do
Yes,
you
yes.
see quirks in foals and fillies? I got to bring them up. Foals and fillies. That was our F, remember? Do you see it in the young horse?
They'll
That
play
black
with each
quirk.
other. If they have a chance to interact with another foal in the same pasture, let's say, or even, a separate paddock, at least with sharing a same fence line, babies will challenge each other and race up and down a fence line and play, and so, of course, if they're out in a big pasture, they can run and play together, and that's normal activity, is playtime, and that happens with a horse that's more youthful.
I've seen like our horse Surtees, and I know I've brought this up on the show multiple times, but I think it's kind of a quirk. One thing he did, Surtees was Nancy's horse, and he was retired and he was a jumper and you know, he was a show jumper, but like he won awards and all that kind of stuff. And we had nothing to do with any of that. We were just like the caregivers of this
Mhm.
giant horse. Talked about how we had the jumps set up in the paddock and he would just run and do these jumps every morning, he loved to jump. And even, after we took him through a show just for the fun of it, and he finished the show, won, but still had to go back and do the whole circuit backwards, right? But he also knew how to open things. So he was known. He could open stable doors. He could open paddock fences.
Mhm.
He opened things. And
Well,
so he
that's what we're
got
talking about
known.
today. Course.
Quirk.
And
It
he
was
did not.
hard to outwit him.
Yeah, the quirk is that he had enough time to stand there. He was idle enough with enough time to get creative and figure, you know what, I can figure out this latch. I've got to figure out how to open up this gate. There might be a benefit to it if there's grass on the other side, or there's freedom on the other side, or a horse to visit on the other side. And horses will, can tap in to a little more intelligence than sometimes we think that they have or that they apply. And they get very creative. That's why I've got toys. I've got toys in every paddock so that these horses can interact with something that they want to play with. I've got to actually put some logs out, little real tree logs with wood that I know if my horse chews on this log, it won't bother them at all to hurt them or anything. But horses like to gnaw on wood sometimes this time of year in the fall or especially in the winter. It's actually another food source because horses, if they're in the wild, will gnaw on bark of trees. And I've got horses that'll pick up these logs and drag them around. I've got one that picked it up the other day and dropped it in the water tub.
That's hysterical.
But he'll take this plastic ball, drop it in the water tub, and then try to encourage the other horse to do it. Well, the other horse isn't as creative as he is. So I'll go out in the evening, and now I've got to take out the plastic balls out of the water tub.
And the logs.
Well, the log, yeah, and the log. Oh my gosh, it's just so they have different quirks.
Each one has their own personality, and that's getting to
Right.
know your horse, which
Right.
is wow.
I'll
So,
talk about a couple. We'll just throw a few out there
yeah,
and let people know what I've experienced and observing all these horses all these years and training and raising my own and training for other people. And it's just been it's been fun to watch how horses, even their dexterity with their upper lip, that is one thing that's really amazing is that upper lip. It's not just to find that one little piece of morsel of grass or alfalfa hay that might be down in the dirt or in their feeder, but they can take that lip. And of course, they use their teeth to scratch themselves like we take our fingers and take care of a fly bite, but they can use that lip, and that lip is very, very strong. And so they can lift things and they can turn things. And if they play with something long enough, they actually can comprehend a little bit that the fact that if they're playing with a latch, that latch becomes open at a certain point, and they'll keep playing with it till they get it to that open part. Till the latch is open. And then I have one horse here that actually will use her knee and push the gate and open it. She's managed to figure out the horse-proof gate. And she just walked out, decided to walk over to the front lawn and graze that afternoon. It was just amazing. She figured that out.
So how do you handle that?
Well, there's deterrents. There's easy deterrent. You add another chain with a trigger snap on it around that gate. Even if the latch does get undone, she can't push the gate open. You have to sort of double latch your gates because horses are going to get creative.
That is amazing talking about that because it's creativity. I mean, he would get out, Surtees would get out, and he tried to get in the house. Because he could open doors. And I'm not kidding. And he did actually go in the house. That he opened the door. What are you going to do? And you don't want to spook a horse, right? So I wanted to ask, how do you handle it when a horse does that? Because then some people will get mad at the horse and angry. And
you can't. Actually, if you watch it happen, and if you're in a secure place, let the horse follow through because then you're going to really know how to the intent or to the extent that how this horse figured this out, and you're going to have to prevent it for safety because you're liable if your horse gets out of the road. My goodness, you're definitely liable if that horse causes a problem with an automobile or somebody on a bicycle. But you could double wrap that. You can even tie a rope around the gate plus the latch. I mean, there's so many things that you can do to deter that from happening. But you should just softly and slowly walk up to your horse and just pat its neck and just let it know it's okay. You don't want to go up and scold it. You don't want to jerk on it. You don't want to rush at this horse because if he doesn't have a halter on or even a fly mask that you can grab, he could turn tail and run away from you and run out on the road. So no, you always should approach an animal that's gotten out like that very calmly to get them
like cats and dogs. People freak out and start running and yelling. And I'm like, that cat ain't going to come home if you do that. And they will come back because everybody wants their food. The food thing, they know your food source, but horses are a little different. And I know people who lose their temper if the animal doesn't behave exactly what they want.
Well, that's incorrect. And we should be smarter than that. We're the humans. We're the superior beings. We should control our temper. You don't lose your temper with an animal. They're not going to know what that's all about. They have a 4-second window to learn something if they do something wrong and you can make a correction. But if that horse is out there grazing, they're not going to know why you're upset or why you slap them. If you shouldn't even do that anyway. Calmly catch that horse with a rope. Obviously, you're going to walk up to it. I keep halters at all my gates halters and lead ropes.
Smart.
So if that horse does get out, I know to walk up slowly to that gate, turn around and go back to get to where the horse is, put the rope around his neck. I can even just lead them away with the fly mask, but you should stay calm. You never,
Act like nothing's happened.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, you can do
Just
that.
keep it calm. And that's the truth, because when animals even and horses don't they feel it? Even if you're on a horse and don't they feel your fear? Like they
Yes,
know. They can
feel
feel what you're
tension.
doing.
Yeah, they
Hmm.
feel
I'm s-
you're distracted as well. So we've had some
oh,
horses with some really interesting quirks. We've had one that actually loved to take his upper lip and get his lip out of the way and use his teeth to grab the zipper on your jacket. This horse was hysterical because if he had a zipper jacket on in the wintertime, he'd come up and grab the little tab. And if you stood there, he moved that zipper up and down, up and down, and up and down, and
oh
up and
my
down.
gosh.
Oh,
That's
I mean, it was
funny.
just hysterical. I hate to use this on the air, but we called him the molester in
Oh,
a good
because
way.
of
We
the
kind of
zipper.
laughed
Yeah,
about it
because
because
of
he would
yeah.
almost undress you if you had a zipper on. He was taking it off. He was up and down and up and down and up and down, and he just loved playing with that zipper.
Well, we took care of a donkey once that anything that poked out of your body, in other words, my butt ski got like nips and other things. The upper shelf, let's put it this way, he's
Yeah,
just went, oh, that looks like something interesting to
yeah.
but nothing painful or anything bad. But he was just like, it's poking out, you know. So
Well, okay, so that we need to stress that really quick. You need to be cautious of that. That's not a fun thing to stand there and wait to see if what's going to happen.
oh yeah, yeah,
If it
yeah,
has to do
agree.
with your body part of an elbow, a hand, your chest, whatever part of you that horse is interested in, I would discourage that just by pushing the horse away because
Mm-hmm.
some horses sometimes will be sneaky about their interest. And I've seen people that have gotten bit before in the chest,
Mm.
on their cheek, on their elbow. A horse has grabbed an arm and they can snap at any time if. And I've never had a horse that's done this, but I've heard stories and I've seen results of other people that have horses at home that have bruises from all of that. So I would discourage anything. The zipper was different because that was a layer. I mean, that was a zipper to jacket and then the
Funny.
sweater underneath that and yada yada. So,
They have
uh,
mechanical brains,
well, some of them do. Some of them do. Not all of them,
Yeah.
but some of them do. We've had a horse here that loves to back up to the mounting block that is a two-step mounting block and try to put her legs on the mounting block. And I've
That's
got a video of
funny.
that. She backs up to it, tries to get her back legs up on the step, and it's just so interesting why she likes to back up to things. If she's in a stall where the mounting block isn't, she'll back up to her feed bin and try to get her back legs in the feed bin.
Oh, that's
So it's
funny.
I have no idea where that came from, but she does it very calmly. Really thinks about it and just stands there for quite a few hours trying to get her back legs on the step. I mean, it's just silly, silly.
Uh, But it's endearing to me. You get to know your animals and this is, I'm loving this this is one of the best for me because I think it's getting to know the animal and their fun things. And I think it's so important to know how your animal behaves because if there's an emergency medically or any kind of situation, and if they are acting differently, or can that help you gauge health? Like if they're not doing their regular quirks, isn't that a sign to you that,
No, the
like,
quirk, yeah,
no?
the quirk is not going to be, it can repeat itself, but most of the time when you see quirks, you'll see it once or twice a week. Again, that's where we have to define quirk and a vice.
Oh,
If
okay.
something gets serious enough that this horse does it repeatedly, either every hour, every 6 hours, every day, it's more a vice than it is a quirk. Because then
Hmm.
you have to observe what it is, and also, again, try to help prevent a health issue. So if this
Hmm.
horse is, let's say it's even biting at its belly or biting at its friend, there's a reason that horse is distressed. Why would he be biting that much? So that's when you call in your veterinarian and you try to look at, of course, the manure that's left. Are they healthy? I mean, it changes. It changes over. Quirks are things that horses can entertain themselves with to have fun and they can't get hurt. A vice
Oh,
could affect their health and can be very serious. It could be the start or a way of them saying, hey, I'm not feeling well, and they're stressed. So there's a difference there.
oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That's it. I'm so glad we're talking about this. So, but it is fun to look at, right? To watch and for you, do you get calls like from clients going, my horse is doing this. Should I be concerned? Why are, the backing up and things like that? Like your horse backing
Well,
up, right?
It's not I think most of the clients that have been with me long enough know horses well enough
Mm.
to enjoy a quirk and watch it and have fun, and we'll discuss it at the next lesson or the next show we go to or on the trail ride. I never get them calling in a panic saying, that my horse tried to put her back legs on the step, and because it's you can if you have any horse sense at all, if you've been around horses long enough, you realize that's
Yeah.
not a bad thing. That's just the
Yeah.
horse is being playful, and that's just something that they're doing.
Mhm.
We have another horse that the big feeders we use, by the way, are the fruit bins that they use here in California when they pick their fruit, and the
Mhm.
bins are, maybe 2.5 feet high by 4 feet by 4 feet, and we use those in the pens, actually underneath the feeders. So when the horse pulls the hay out of their feeders hanging on the fence, the metal feeders, the hay drops into the bin, and that prevents the horse from eating off of the ground. But I've got one horse because it's that low and she's tall enough, she will actually go over and straddle the corner of the feed bin and scratch her belly.
Oh, that's funny. You
Right to
go.
the spot where she wants to scratch. She can't reach that enough as she just isn't agile enough. And the way she's put together with her muscle and everything, she can't reach that spot. And she will use that feed bin and she'll rush. She'll stretch your body out and rock back and
Oh
forth
my
like a
gosh, I
rocking
can
horse
see it.
to scratch,
That's
to scratch your belly. I mean, that takes a lot of creativity as far as I'm concerned.
animals are like that, and in general, like the scratching thing it is like that, right? And there's one dog that we just pet sat. There's a whippet and very sweet. Oh, very elegant, very royal.
Of course,
And,
yeah.
but she comes in and she will look at me working, come in, and I go to pet her. I say, "Hi, Lola." She turns around immediately, backs up her butt to me because she wants a butt scratch. She wants her butt massage.
Sure.
Every time she sees me, she'll come inside, look at me, wag her tail, and back up. It's
Yeah.
there. Even on a walk, she would look at me. I'm
Aw.
backing up. You know how to do the butt ski. We call it the butt ski. And animals know. And this sounds really weird, but animals want their rump to be, even horses,
Okay, well,
that.
let's
And
interpret that a little bit. Everybody loves a massage.
exactly what I mean. It's
Yeah,
a massage or
yeah,
scratching. And
that's
if
right.
you don't get it, they're like, "Ooh, this feels good." And horses, I love animals when they're feeling like, "Ooh, I'm getting that, itch scratched." And,
No, no,
they
we have several horses
smile.
that do that. Several
They
horses that do that
smile.
will back up to you. Matter of fact, if you're in the pen cleaning the pen, they back up to you because you've got a rake in your hand. I can literally take a rake and I can rake. I tease and I say, I'm going to rake my horse over the coals. And I laugh about it because I could take the rake and rake their sides, rake their butt, rake their chest, and they don't panic because I've never used it in a negative
Yeah.
way. They know that that's just an extension of my arm, and that rake is going to scratch a whole lot better than my little tiny fingers. So a horse backs up to me if I have a pitchfork or a rake in my hand, and they get their butt scratched. They love it. They know. They just
And
know.
and do they know, like, when you groom a horse, have you ever had a horse that won't let you stop? Like, it's like, "No, you haven't stopped. No, go back."
Point, yes, they'll point with their lips. They'll turn around and actually point to the spot. They know they can't reach it, but I have one horse that points and tells me where she wants to be. And I have a horse that's also very, very muscular. It's impossible for her to turn around and even scratch her flank. So she's a funny lady. I hate to let her secret out, but she will literally lift her hind leg so I can scratch her teats. So
Ah,
where a female horse would have her
yeah.
bag, her milk bag, if she were to have a foal. So when they never have a foal, or they've had a foal a long time ago, those teats dry up, and they
Mm.
have a little bit of a wax build up because that's what nature gives them in order for the movement of their hips to move side to side and do everything that they're going to do. And she just can't reach that, and she needs them scratched once in a while. But she will lift her leg for me like a male dog lifting its leg, so that I can get to her teats. And I know exactly what she's asking me to do. So anybody that would walk into that would be just, their mouth would drop open thinking, oh my gosh, is this horse going to kick you? What is, what's
Yeah,
that
and
horse
then
doing?
then Christy turns around and gets the rake out. This is sounding
I
very.
don't I don't rake her teeth because the metal
No,
would
no,
hurt her,
don't
but I
do
use
that. No,
yeah,
no,
but I
no,
use
no.
my hands, and they're
Yeah.
so grateful. So this is how you know they're grateful and they're enjoying it, is they use that upper lip again. And they
Hmm.
stick their upper lip out when you hit that certain spot that you've scratched them, and it feels really, really good to them. They will take that lip and make it stretch it out and make it look like an elephant's trunk as long as they can, and that's their way of saying thank you. That just feels wonderful. Keep doing it.
Have to ask you this. It's completely off the topic, but it's not, because of the upper lip. The upper lip, is this not like one of their most sensitive places? And so you've got to be gentle with it. And at the same time, feeding a horse, like if you don't know, so people may be absolute horse lovers that are listening to this, but have not really, you go to feed a horse and sometimes it can be scary and you don't want to, no, do not put your fingers in their mouth. But there's a way to feed them and there's a way to, their not their nose will muzzle you like and so sometimes that can be scary for first time people with horses. And I know you're so good about, when you've done trail rides, you make sure people are comfortable and the horse is comfortable and everybody has to be comfy together. But sometimes like when that nose comes out, it can be for a newbie kind of alarming, right? So, and that is sensitive. As far as
For
I've
that,
always learned that
yeah,
that's a sensitive
yeah.
place.
That's how that horse can take with that upper lip, can find that one flake, which would be a leaf on a piece of alfalfa that's in that dirt, and they can pick up that one leaf. It's just amazing to watch. Instead of picking up a mouthful of dirt, that lip is so sensitive, and they know how to use their tongue that they can just pick that one leaf up and get it. So when you're hand feeding them, yeah, people need to know that the horses, I've never had a horse use its teeth to take a treat. They will
Hmm.
take their lips first. They
Yep.
will actually take the lip to encourage the morsel, whether it's an apple, a carrot, or a horse cookie, to go into their mouth. And once it's into their mouth, their tongue grabs it, and then their teeth can start chewing on it. So no, they never use their teeth. Now, if you want to be foolish enough to stick your fingers in their mouth because your fingers
That's
look like carrots, they're not going to know the difference until you start to yell, until something serious happens. And so, no, you keep your hand flat, you keep your fingers together, and you can actually push your hand up towards their muzzle, which is very soft, but it's also very sensitive. And then they'll take that morsel from you in a very safe way.
always was learn to put your hand out like your palm as high as it can go. I mean, we can't really bend our hands that much, but yeah, keep your fingers together and
Hmm.
your palm out, like so,
Yeah.
like you'd balance like on the ridge between your palm and
Well,
your cup.
you need to have the
Yeah,
palm cupped a little bit, because if you're
yeah,
not experienced pushing the morsel up to the horse's lip, most people back away. And if you back away, then you drop it. And of
yeah.
course, you've got to go rinse it. You never just pick it up out of the dirt and offer it to the horse again. The horse doesn't need to ingest dirt and sand.
Now that is excellent. People don't think that way.
Mm.
Yeah, it's an
Yeah.
animal, just let it have. Well, I feel that way about food containers for animals, where I feel we should be cleaning them all the time because why
Well,
would
they need to remain dry. Depends on what you're feeding. Most grains
yeah,
and supplements need to have their bucket or their plastic container needs to stay up off the ground and dry. If you get any moisture in something, then we're going to have problems with mildew, cobwebs, spiders, bugs, things like that. So, you've got, I mean, if you go into your pantry and all of a sudden you find
yeah,
black things in your flour, you're going to wonder, gee, I wonder how they got in there. There's a crack in my plastic container. I need to fix that and replace that, because you don't want to eat anything that's been soiled or has bugs in
yeah,
it. The same
right.
thing goes with your horse feed.
Yeah. Look at this. We're going all over the place today. You're getting all kinds of education today. So, okay. So any more quirks for
Oh
us
yeah,
that for
I've got a few more. Let's talk about
yeah.
one of the horses that love. Some horses just love to flop their lips, so they shake their head and loosen their lips, so their lips will make a slapping sound like this because they're flipping their head up and down, and they love to hear
Ah,
that sound. It's like you walking around in thongs or zoris on your feet,
yeah.
and you hear that slap, slap, slap to your heel. Horses love
Hmm.
to, they get really bored, and they can slap their lips, which is just hysterical to watch. Got to be careful anything that has to do with their mouth like that. You want to be careful that it's not going into a vice, because we'll talk about vices later on. That could be a problem with that as well. But then we have a horse that will pull wraps off. Let's say we have a little injury or we have to wrap the leg for some reason. I've got horses that will go reach down, pull that Velcro, and
Yep.
open up the wraps and take them off. I mean, it's
Yeah.
unbelievable what they do. And then you talked about a horse going into a building. Yes, if horses know there is a feed room, a treat room, a place that you come out every time and you always have an apple. If you leave a door open, and I can't imagine your horse would be loose enough to follow you in there because you should be tied or cross tie or something else. But I have horses that will walk into buildings with me as well. That's not uncommon because they know
Okay.
that's where the treats are and they're not afraid of it. They'll walk through the door. You definitely don't want them getting into a tight spot and getting into a panic if there's not a lot of room for a 1,200-pound horse to turn around and walk into a building. So you've got to be careful with that.
Yeah, we had a Doberman Pinscher, a little miniature Doberman, and that's the problem because that was little dogs think that they are the biggest dogs on the planet. That was a scary moment, and it was like everybody had to be calm and collected because,
Mhm.
that is a bull in a china shop, and it was crazy. But I think because this was like a rescue situation, and I think whoever had him before allowed this kind of behavior. Which
Mhm.
we know better. That animals have their place, you have yours. It's
Right.
just everything's different. And we had a barbecue, a braai, as we called it in South Africa where we were. And we had some people over. We're all sitting there and he just saw people horse, right? He opened his paddock. We just fixed it. Nope. I know how to get past you. Walked up. And so again, calm. And we're telling everybody just chill. And actually our entire there was no way for him to get off the property because we had it all fenced in. All like you had to go through everything to get through everything through everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's
Mhm.
like if you came down the driveway, you have like 4 gates to go through before you could get to anywhere. And that
Yeah.
was a good thing. So everyone said, but we didn't want any startling kind of things. He came walking up to the barbecue and we had this huge outdoor, I don't know how to, like a big, it's like a wood fired oven almost, but it's like it's a braai. It's a different language. He walked right up. He walked up. He wanted to taste the coleslaw. He
Oh
wanted
my
to see
god.
what was on the barbecue, which was
Yeah.
weird because it's meat.
Mhm.
And we're sitting there. He walked right onto it. And we're like, everybody just chill out because, don't freak him out. He's huge. He was like a 18, 19 hand horse and, cart horse. Don't
Well,
mess
they
with
have
him. But
toys,
he was
like I
sweet and
said.
he just wanted to be part of it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
make my own toys, but you can certainly buy them online. There's some horse tack saddle companies that sell the big balls, and horses like those big balls. They like to push them around. Some that are even 4 foot high, some that are just a foot and a half high. They like to play with the balls. They like to push them.
Wow.
And I've actually, if the folks want to be entertained, and you can do this as well, Lisa, you need to go onto YouTube and type in Appaloosa playing soccer.
We'll link it in the episode notes.
Appaloosa playing soccer, and I have a horse named Cowboy that's a leopard Appaloosa that is playing with a ball, and it's just hysterical. And we got that videotaped and we put it up on YouTube several years ago, and it's just he was a charming horse that had lots of life, was full of life, just a really wonderful horse. And then I have one horse that likes to make alfalfa tea. This is
What?
really interesting. So if we feed him in his normal paddock, his hay bin is far enough away from water that he won't do this. But if he has to go to a horse show, or if he's on the Chief Joe ride, where he's tied to a trailer on my high ties and he's got water, I always keep water in front of my horses on the trail ride because that's very, very critical that they constantly have access to water. But even at a horse show with a horse in a stall, my horse will take the hay over and dip it in his bucket and make tea. So he's telling me right there that he likes his hay a little more moist.
Hmm.
And that's perfectly fine with me. It's an absolute mess. And of course, at the end of the day, he probably won't drink all of that water of all the tea that he made. And it really it starts to ferment and doesn't smell very good. So we have to constantly clean his buckets. But I am pleased with that because, again, my horse is getting additional moisture in his gut. He needs that fluid, especially on the Chief Joe ride. And at horse shows, it's just hysterical to watch this horse take his hay. So we try to separate the bucket's on one side of the stall and the hay's on the other side. So we can't do that at a horse show because there's a lot of cleanup involved with that. But on the Chief Joe, it's very, very important and critical. And I love it. I love the fact that he likes to make tea. It's wonderful.
And that is, and you know what? Us humans drink alfalfa tea. I do. I drink it. Anyway, that's a whole other topic. But there is such a thing. Herbal alfalfa tea is actually an
Yeah.
herbal thing,
Mm.
and it is actually settling for your belly. So anyway, if you do it right and not get the mold and all that you're talking about, the mildew or whatever. But how cool, Christy! This has been fun.
It
It's
has been
fun.
fun.
It's fun, and we got some other, informative segments in here because a conversation leads to other things and you never know. So I love this. And we look forward to next month. We get to R. Can you believe we've gone this far in the alphabet?
Oh, I just
You
love
know,
it. I just love it.
so everybody stay tuned for that. We'll be back here. We're here every second Saturday. So next month, what are we talking about when it comes to R? Just to give people a teaser.
Well, we were going to talk about possibly rearing, why
Oh,
horses rear, and actually horses shouldn't rear. So we're going to talk about a few training tips to try to troubleshoot that
And a
sometimes.
little roping too, right? Can we do a little
When you talk
roping?
about roping, yes, there are roping events out
Yeah.
there for people to show and compete on rodeos and horse shows. Some events are against the clock for speed, and believe it or not, some are judged on how well you're going to throw that rope. So it's really fascinating.
Awesome. Everyone, keep up with Christy. Go to wdnhorse.com. And of course, she's got 3 books out there. Your Best Horse Show, a guide for managers and exhibitors. Also, the children's book, which is also for adults. Written by a horse. No, I'm just kidding. But written from Ranger's perspective. It's called Ranger, the Little Horse with a Big Heart. And her latest book is Hoof Prints Across Time, a Trail Ride to Remember. And that really covers Christy's journey and her horse's journey on the Chief Joseph Trail Ride that we talk about on the show like last month. So everyone, thank you so much. All the links are in the episode notes. Thank you, Christy, and giddy up, y'all.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio's ABCs of Horses featuring Christy Wood. You can keep up with Christy and learn more about her services and her books by going to her website, wdnhorse.com. Keep up with Big Blend Radio at bigblendradio.com.